Dear Intuitive Pool community, welcome to 2026. This is my first time podcasting for the year, and I actually want to thank a beautiful woman called Alex who wrote to me a few days ago and said that she'd been listening to one of the episodes and that she wanted to dive more deeply into my world and where could I point her to. And I hadn't podcasted since the end of December because I haven't known how to put into words what I've been feeling in the first month of 2026. And now I do, at least the beginning of. So thank you, Alex, for that prompt. And I really hope that you enjoy this episode and the coming episodes. So we are in the year of the fire horse, and it's really interesting because I have never naturally been drawn to astrology. Yes, I subscribe to Elizabeth Peru for those who know who I'm speaking about, and I receive her daily forecast and I really enjoy it. But, I kind of skip past all the Neptune and Aries and, the astrological part and I get to the messaging. And I have never really been, or I should say, I've never really had a natural relationship with the astrological year. Last year was the year of the snake, and this year is the year of the fire horse. However, the fire horse energy has been speaking to me so clearly, so pointedly, so directly. And not because I have read anything about the fire horse, not because I know anything from an educated or an intellectual space, but from an energetic frequency space. The fire horse and I are very, very connected and very much in communion with each other. And I am so grateful for that. So today's episode, I would love it to be an episode where you feel like you walk away with some new concepts, some new contexts, some new anchor points, some new pillars that you can lean into. And I'm going to do my best so that that intention happens. And what I'm also aware of is that this is an exchange of frequency more so. Yes, I do want you to understand things with the mind. As I said, contexts and anchor points and pillars and new ways of looking at things. Of course, I want you to walk away, contemplating those things. And also, what I really, really want is I want this to be an exchange of frequency so that your feeling body gets activated. Because my feeling body has been very activated over January. And it's because of that feeling activation, not only what I'm thinking up here, that there has been so much momentum already in the first month of the year. Because I have been activated at a energetic level, my channel is really open. I've been feeling different frequencies. And when I feel those different frequencies, I then know that something wants to download through my channel. And I have been downloading through my channel. And it's one of my favorite experiences when that happens, when something simply starts with the frequency of, like, as I said, it's been very pointed, very direct, very calling out. When I feel that in my body and I take my computer and I close my eyes and I touch type out what that frequency wants to say to me. So I don't think about what is going to come. I simply feel about, and then the words come through me, as I said, through my channel. And then once they've come through, I then can read and understand what I have been informed about. And so this year has been about that. It's been about being informed about, from not so much from listening to other people at all, actually. It's very much been an insular process within myself, informed by the energy of the fire horse. And so I hope very much that this episode and the future episodes are going to activate the same for you, such that your channel opens, or opens more if it's already open, and that you receive through you what the fire horse wants to tell you and how it wants to move with you in 2026. This is the year that we have been waiting for. And I know that that is true for many of us who are part of the community, whether it be through coaching or whether it be through this podcast or through friendships. I know that that is true. This is the year that we have been waiting for. With that, I'm going to speak to just a few pieces around the messaging that I have received from the fire horse. Some concepts, as I said, some context, some pillars, some anchors that you can orientate in. And then I'm going to read to you probably one of the most pointed and very direct downloads that I have ever received in the whole of my life. That I have read, I received it Friday week ago on the 23rd of February. I was delivering a group call with my best year yet people. And I said to them, before getting on the call with them, I said, there's a very, very pointed energy that I can feel this morning, and I'm going to presence it. And I did afterwards, and I shared it with them yesterday. And somebody said, that is the most powerful piece I've ever heard you speak. And I believe that to be true, because since I received that, I have been reading it every day, really from presence, and it has lined me up every day. It has lined me up. So before I get into a little bit of teaching, I want to tell you about a decision that I've made. Part of this fire horse energy, I guess there's a bit of teaching here, is about big yes energy and big no energy. When you can feel the big yes, it's just this big yes. Doesn't even need to be thought about, doesn't need to be contemplated, does not need to be sat with. And then there's this big no, again, that does not need to be contemplated, does not need to have patience around it and time and space around it. It's simply a big no. And I'm going to share with you a big no that occurred for me in December last year. So I imagine that most of you would know that I started a program called the Presence Room in August last year. And the vision of the Presence Room was, it was a space where, in my imagination, many people could come into this space. It was a space or a container where we would drop into presence and into the power of our presence once a month on Zoom. And because it was so self-directed, being, only one call per month, dropping into the power of our presence and moving from there, that I imagine that many people would come into this program. About 12 people came into this program. That wasn't a problem because I had intention of growing it. So I ran it in August, September, October, November. In fact, I created another day, not just the one day that people could drop in. I created another day because I was noticing that people were having trouble even committing to the last Thursday of the month for an hour and a half. But even with that, I could not see across the board, I could not see the commitment. I could not see, ironically so, the presence that I was requiring. I could not see the joy, and I couldn't feel it within myself. And I know what group spaces can be. I know the power, the community, the connection, the intimacy, the intuition that gets shared, the leadership that gets shared, the joy, the happiness, the laughter, the humanity, the depth. I know how good a group container can be because I have experienced it time and time again. And at the same time as running the presence room, I was also running another group container called My Best Year Yet, which I started in November 2024 and we complete in March this year. And that program, My Best Year Yet, is one of my very favorite group containers that I have ever run. It is full of everything that I just spoke about. So I had that going on where we were meeting 3 times a month. I mean, not everybody meets 3 times a month, but it's there for people to meet 3 times a month on Zoom if they wish. And then I had the presence room, which was running like 1 or 2 times, and the experience was so different. And so I made a decision in December to close the presence room. It was a big no. It was a big no. And the relief that I felt in closing that space was unbelievable. My intention was I was going to also close My Best Year Yet in March when that container completed. And I am going to close My Best Year Yet in March when that container completes. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to open a new space with the same structure as My Best Year Yet, but to the theme of beautiful madness, which I'll speak about in a moment. In the year of the fire horse, we need a village to realize visions and missions of beautiful madness. It takes a village to realize visions and missions of beautiful madness. So in March, I will be commencing another year in the same format as My Best Year Yet, which includes 3 75-minute calls per month. You can come to all 3 calls. Some people do that, and some people come maybe once or maybe twice, however it works for them. You know I love writing. You know the power of writing. Notes to self. We use that vehicle as part of this program. So whether people write notes to self as part of their daily practice, which is something that I do almost every day, to be honest, almost. And with the people of My Best Year Yet, yes, absolutely. Some of the people write notes to self very, very often, if not every day. And then some people would come to My Best Year Yet and be activated by the writing that was shared on the call. And then we all go into our own piece of writing and we share. And it is so full of power, so full of humanity, so full of leadership. And the things that happened, which I'm not going to talk about here in My Best Year Yet, have been life-changing. And it's been such a joy. So I'm sharing this with you because it is an immaculate space. It is an immaculate space to be supported, to be held accountable to the intuitions that are rising through us, to the visions, the missions, whether they be simply for us or whether they be for people beyond us, bigger than us. It is an incredible space to take root, plant, not only plant the seeds, but like really take root and to grow and realize in the world what we have been receiving. There will be a link in the show notes to my website. It will be beginning in March. Please take a look at that. And I would dearly love you to be part of that. Most of my best year people will be continuing in Beautiful Madness, which is extremely precious to me. And if you feel the pull, well, that is very precious to me too. So let's go into some of the pieces that I have received in the last month. As I said, the year of the fire horse, I don't believe I have ever experienced the energetics like I have been experiencing this month. Pointed, direct, unambiguous, calling out, asking for our accountability, asking for, not even asking, demanding that we realize in the world what we have become aware of, the visions and the missions that we've been charged with, the pulls that are coming through. Perhaps up to the last 10 years, maybe shorter for some people, we have very much been leaning towards more of the feminine creative principle. When I talk about the feminine creative principle, I'm talking about awareness, contemplation, inner work, inner relationship with ourselves. The year of the snake last year was about shedding old identities, shedding belief systems, ways of being and doing, in summary, identities. The feminine creative principle is very much, as I said, the inner workings. It's about going into the shadows, seeing our blind spots, seeing the thresholds we've created on how powerful and loving we can be. The feminine creative principle has also a massive thread of humility that works us. Sometimes we're brought to our knees, we're humbled, we see where we have, resisted or judged our God-given gifts. Everything that I'm talking to you about is what I have been podcasting about since the end of 2021. It's very much been about deepening, returning where we hold fear in ourselves, where we hold fear in each other, returning it all back to love. Fear to love, fear to love, fear to love. A Course in Miracles type work. This year is different. This year is not only about leaning into the feminine creative principle of all of that. Of course, it is still about being sourced from the feminine creative principle. Of course, it is about awareness, contemplation, intuition, receiving, listening, feeling, being led from our higher selves. Of course. And if you can imagine that word "and" in big capital letters, it is now also balanced with leadership, self-leadership from the masculine creative principle. The masculine creative principle is about implementation, delivery, execution, action, embodiment, not just in thought and beingness, but in physicality. It's about realization. It's about materialization. It's about form. The feminine creative principle is about the formless nature of life. It is about our beingness and where our beingness is located in. And hopefully it's located in love, in the consciousness of love and being led from there. And then that formless creative principle of energy then informs matter. It creates matter. The masculine creative principle is about matter. It's about form. It is about the physical realization. It's about my soul being in this body. Without this body, I don't self-actualize. It is about actualization. You think about the fire horse, a horse, it's so powerful. It's fierce. It's not a little mosquito, annoying mosquito. It's a beautiful, grand animal, a beautiful, grand, majestic being that gallops, that we sense its presence. It is here in physical form. The year of the fire horse, the year that we have been waiting for, is the year where we finally materialize all that we have come to know, all that we have come to be, and all the visions and the missions and the plot twists and the pivots that arrive in the year of the fire horse and may have already begun to arrive last year in the world. It's really interesting because, thanks to COVID, we got to do this. We got to be online. We got to have relationships all over the world. We no longer needed to be in the same physical location. And in fact, I started coaching this way online from 2013, so way before COVID. So grateful, my goodness, that we can have relationships with people across the other side of the world. And I personally really feel a pull to be in the world. I went to a march out parade last Sunday for the Veteran Mentor Group. I interviewed Troy Methurst, the founder of Veteran Mentors, on the Intuitive Pool podcast. Without getting lost in that story, very quickly, he went to Afghanistan, he fought in Afghanistan, came back to Australia, lost himself, did the work, came into his leadership, came into his purpose, and founded an organization called Veteran Mentors that supports troubled teens. And I went at the end of their 9th day of being together, 40 kids, 20 mentors. All the mentors had been part of the military, very powerful people, also very vulnerable and also very heartfelt because they've done the work. I went and I saw there what they call the march out parade, where all these kids come and march out and then throw their hats in the air, and their parents come and hug, and there's just not a dry eye anywhere between the kids and the parents and the mentors. It's just beautiful. I loved being there. I loved being in relationship, seeing there, not just online. I loved it. The fire horse year is about being in the world. One of the things that has really helped me when I have been acting from both the feminine principle and the masculine principle in the last month is a languaging that came through me that helps me orientate in both the feminine and the masculine. We've all heard the words higher self, we've heard the word mind of God, and they're all words that I've used in the past. However, the words that came through me just recently are big mind and small mind. And I have been conscious to be orientating in big mind. And the reason why I like the word or the words big mind versus, for example, higher self or mind of God is because big mind seems to me to also contain my human element. Higher self kind of feels ethereal and formless. Mind of God certainly feels ethereal and formless. Big mind feels like the bigger part of me in my body, versus small mind. So I wanted to share that with you. Are you coming from your big mind? Are you coming from your small mind? What would it look like if you came from your big mind? I've been running scenarios through, like if I've had a contemplation about something and I haven't known the answer, I haven't known how to respond. I've asked myself, okay, if I come from big mind here, what do I see? And it's like, oh, well, that's not aligned at all. So I'm not going to go there. Or if I was running through the same scenario and I go, how does that relate to small mind? Yeah, actually, that's small mind, me trying to, you know, figure how that can work out. Big mind tells me it's just not aligned. Go and focus elsewhere. So I wanted to share that in its very simple form. I also wanted to share, which I've already demonstrated through the presence room and the saying no and closing down of the presence room. I also wanted to talk about the big yes and the big no. I love the big yes and the big no because the big yes comes from the big mind and the big no comes from the big mind. I love the big yes and the big no because in the year of the fire horse, as opposed to other years where we sat with things, we stewed over things, we mulled over things brewed. Interesting, all the foodie words. There was that simmering, right? There was being with. I'm not going to say that that's not ever going to be part of 2026, but it is very different this year. In fact, what I have noticed is, and I got called out by my beautiful friend Michelle just this week, what I've noticed is that if my response is, oh, just let me be with this, I want to write about it. I had this idea and I spoke to my friend Michelle about it. The idea actually is about creating a cohort in the community, in the flesh, here in Sydney, to the theme of Big Mind, like a networking group. And I said to Michelle, oh, I see two people. Isn't that interesting? I don't know why they're there. Oh, she said to me, what's the next action? Because we're being accountable to ourselves in relationship with each other this year around really coming from big mind. And I said, oh, I just need to write about it. She said, no. She said, those two people came into your intuition for a reason. Just send a message and say, let's go and have coffee and presence it together. So there's an instantaneous element this year that is different to the previous years of sitting with and being with and, contemplating and pondering and allowing, and it's instantaneous. You receive it from the feminine and you go and act upon it. Now, this is what I want to talk about now in the context of what happens when we have these big yeses and then in the year of the fire horse, we're asked to act upon it rather than ponder it for a while. I want to talk about the idea of results because when we have an idea, we have an intuition, an insight, we have an inspiration, we have a vision, and we go and act upon it. It's actually small mind to think that action that we take must lead to a result in direct alignment with that initial source of inspiration. That's actually small-minded. It's very um, tunnel visioned, actually. If I do this, then I'm going to get that. How small is that in the quantum field? How small? Big Mind says, I receive the inspiration, vision, intuition. I act upon it. I may get a result in direct alignment with that. And certainly I have had that experience so far this year. And I may also receive other results that maybe sit in the realm of plot twists and pivots that we never saw coming. When I have seen that in my own experience, I think about two things. I think about the butterfly effect. That saying that a butterfly's wings flapping can create a tornado on the other side of the world. So, in other words, one action over here that's seemingly separate to an event occurring on the other side of the world is actually connected. And then there's the quantum entanglement theory that also supports that, that says a photon that gets activated over here with a seemingly separate photon in a different physical space is actually responds in the same way as the initial activation of the primary photon, which actually says what seems separate is part of the one quantum field, the one quantum state, the one quantum universe. So I have been taking action this year, and I've been taking action from a place of wonder and awe, in fact, because of this knowing that I might get the result that I have asked for, and I might get a result that I didn't know that I did ask for. And then when it turns up, it's like, wow, big yes, big yes, big yes. So I'm going to give you an example. Who would have thought, who would ever have thought, I would have been the last person to have ever thought that one of the areas that I coach in is in the cancer space. And yes, I have been doing that for 3 or 4 years now. And last year, and I think I spoke about this on the last podcast episode of the year where I talked about walking through the identity doorway and through the doorway of our spirit. Last year, my spirit loves to work in the cancer space. It is very, very, very dear to me. Some people pass, and that's tough. And I trust that the work that we've done has been good work, even though we didn't get the outcome that we would have loved. I know that my work is multidimensional, and sometimes I can't even understand, really what the purpose of our work was. I can certainly get a sense, and, to the rational mind and to most people out there, they'd think that I'm mad. But I do get a sense that, okay, unfortunately, they did not go into remission and they passed away. And whether it's true or not, the sense that I feel about what the work was really about, we'll never know. But I do have a little bit of comfort there when I can see the multidimensionality of the work. And then with other people, they do go into remission, and there have been several miracles, particularly last year, that have occurred that, my heart is just so happy. My spirit is so happy. My spirit thrives in the cancer space as well as the spaces through which my leadership is also expressed in coaching. end of last year, I kind of caught up with myself that even though I was coaching people with cancer, I had never actually realized that I'm a cancer coach. So I caught up with myself at the end of last year and I owned it. And I created a landing page on the website, which just flowed out. I've had a lot of awesome feedback that, it was so resonant because it's just so authentic. And yeah, that is a plot twist and a half that I never, was right under my nose when you think about it, because in physical form, I have been coaching people with cancer, but I just had never really realized that actually I'm a cancer coach as well. So that is a plot twist and a half that comes in the year of the fire horse. That comes when we take action. And as I said, sometimes that action will deliver a result in direct alignment with the initial inspiration. And sometimes it will deliver another result, a plot twist, a pivot that we didn't know we were asking for, but when it arrives, it is a very big yes. And so another one arrived on Thursday this week, actually on Wednesday this week, and then another one too this week. On Wednesday, I was writing my notes to self in the morning, and I just had this massive intuitive hit come. And it was like, when it came and I wrote it out like this, was like, what, really? And the intuition said, for some of the people that I coach in the cancer space, invite them into the new container called Beautiful Madness that I just spoke about before. When I wrote about it in my, what, I don't understand. What came through was, of course, and it's not for everybody, right? It's for people that are able to hold, who are physically well enough, number one, and then who I know that cancer in its singularity is not what cancer is really about for them. So the writing said something like this, but of course, come into a bigger conversation, elevate the frequency from the singularity of the conversation of cancer into the frequency of the multidimensional nature of life that now gets amplified because they're not only in conversations about cancer, they're in conversations of many other things because there are many other conversations happening and contexts happening in Beautiful Madness. So that was the first, like, what? And straight away, I messaged Dr. Carol Haddad, integrative oncologist, who refers some of her patients to me. And I said, oh my God, I just had this intuition that came, and I was just, who would have ever have thought? And I want to run it by you and see what you say. And so we met on Thursday afternoon. And actually, by the time that we'd met on Thursday, it no longer felt so beautifully mad. And when I shared it with her, she was like, oh my God, of course. Like, yes. And we even talked about who we saw there. And the of course is because I ask the people that I coach to write notes to self. And so, hello, come into Beautiful Madness. I spoke about it that day unexpectedly with one of the people that I've been coaching, and she was like, yeah. So there you go. Now, when I was on Zoom with Carol, she said something else to me, another plot twist. She said, and I was not expecting this. I was here to talk about inviting particular people who have cancer into the Beautiful Madness space. She then says, Giselle, I've always had this vision for you of holding a group space for people with cancer. And she said, quite honestly, because not everybody, which I already know, can afford one-on-one coaching with me. However, if there was a group container, she said, doesn't even matter the words that you use or what you do in there, they get access to your frequency, is what she said. They get access to miracle frequency. I was a big yes, immediately. Immediately. No pondering required, no sitting with, no writing about, no delay. Yes. The next day, on Friday, which was yesterday, I had a My Best Year Yet call. I shared all of this with them. And then I spoke about the what I will do. I will do a 10-week program and I'm going to run it 3 times this year. It feels so good even as I said out loud. The first one will begin sometime in March, and there's a process that I do in all of my one-on-ones, which is a process that is such an like really immaculate process that allows people to see what fear-based beliefs have been running the show that they didn't know were running the show, and therefore creating a reality in alignment with those beliefs. And we use a system called the Enneagram. I've used it for, 20 plus years. It's, I'm ex human resources. I've done all the personality profiling systems. And this one, in terms of identifying fear-based beliefs and then seeing how that impacts people's lives, and people going into a place of taking 100% personal responsibility for the reality that they have created from these fear-based beliefs. Like, it is incredibly empowering, incredibly life-changing. And as I said, the process is immaculate. It has never not worked. The power of the subconscious mind is, beyond. And it's an intuitive exercise, and it's one where we really connect the dots, make connections, see the patterns, see how these fear-based beliefs have, where they were, as much as we can, where they were originally sourced or seeded, and then how they have impacted not only life as a child, but also as an adult. It's a really intimate process. And so I said to the people on My Best Year Yet, who, some of them are trained in the Enneagram, I asked them, would they like to help me in that particular week where we use that process, because it's such an intimate process. And I could imagine, you know, maybe one facilitator for 2 or 3 people, like breaking people out into Zoom rooms. And, I had so many people say to me, I'd love to, I'd love to. The joy, like absolute joy. The community is my thing, my my greatest happiness. And here it is in action. So that's what I wanted to share with you as an example of, this year is about not only contemplation and awareness and intuition and receiving and feeling and being sourced from intuition and then insight and visions and missions. It's about action. It's about action from a place of awe and wonder. I wonder what this action will produce. I wonder. As I said, I am in the frequency of awe and wonder right now, right? What can the quantum deliver when I take such personal responsibility that I'm not going to delay what I know to be true, or at least this pull that I have to move with? I'm not going to delay that. I don't need to know how it's all going to work out. In fact, even with the 10-week group program, which I'm going to call Mindset as Medicine, Mindset as Medicine, I don't need to know all the ins and outs of the program right now. I can, which I will, create a landing page on my website and build it, and they will come. Like, I will create it, as I always do with everything that I do. I've never created anything completely, all the content before something actually begins because I'm just limiting it if I'm doing that. Let me work from the energetics. Let me lead from presence. Of course, there'll be some structure. Of course, there'll be some planning. But let me not delay. And thus, we begin sometime in March. I will schedule dates this week, as I will schedule dates for Beautiful Madness this week as well. So I really, really hope that you have been impacted energetically from this episode. It's gone longer than what I had expected. And so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to add that download to this episode. I will create a separate episode specifically for that download. And I encourage you to go and be with that. I encourage you to listen to it. If you want me to share it in writing with you, just email me. So either listen to it or read it on a daily basis and let it line you up. It has lined me up. This is the year that we have been waiting for. Make the most of it. Feel the energy of the fire horse. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.